I started learning percussive guitar recently, and I had this idea from recording some loops in the last few weeks of trying to do some sampling purely using my guitar to build some percussive beats in FL Studio and create more of a complex percussive rhythm to use to do some improvised looping over the top. So what I'm going to try and do today is record some sounds all made 100% on my guitar, record and sample them into FL Studio, build them up into loops using a step sequencer, and just have a go playing something on top of it. Maybe we'll record some guitar loops in there as well and see what we can come out with. And as you can see, I'm recording my screen in FL Studio as well, so I can show you exactly what I'm doing, how I'm recording them, how I'm chopping them out, and layering them up as well. The first thing that I need to do is I've preloaded Edison into my first mixer track here. Got my input selected. So this is actually picking up two inputs. One of them is the microphone that I've got on my desk here, and the other one is the line in that goes directly out from the bottom of my guitar. There's going to be three particular types of sounds that we definitely want to record. Beyond that, we're going to do a bit of experimentation. So those three, of course, being kick drum, hi-hats and snares, which make up the core of the majority of drum loops. They're all relatively simple to make on a guitar. The hardest, I would say, is a hi-hat, just not necessarily the tone of the sound, but the pitch of the sound. But maybe we'll do some pitch shifting in FL Studio as well and see what we can come up with. I'll show you briefly how I'm going to make these three sounds first. So for a kick drum, kind of difficult if you're wearing a jumper. Really what you want to do is get the meaty part from the palm of your hand and experiment with finding the right space around your guitar that's going to get the bassiest sound. For me, it's roughly this area here, just a little bit above the strings, but by all means play around. You'll see how the sound changes as you move around the guitar. Also depends, of course, where you hit it on your hand and with how much pressure. I'm also covering my strings here so that I don't get any accidental vibrations. For the hi-hat, I'm just going to slap my strings with my thumb, again covering the rest of the strings with my left hand. Really just hitting the low E here so that the string hits the neck of the guitar. It's going to slap against one of the fret markers and make a bit of sound there. And then for the snare, you can't really see it from there, but I'm going to use my middle finger to slap against the bottom of my guitar, particularly this bit here. So I'm going to hit record here, go for the kick drum, go for the hat that I talked about, get a few different volumes so that we know that we've got something to choose from. Then the snare. So now what we want to do is choose the ones that we want to use, essentially. Make this a bit bigger so you can see what I'm doing. We'll cut out that little artifact there as well. Then we can play that. Sounds pretty mid, not a lot of bass really. We can try and fix that in EQ though, so I'm happy to use that one. Click and hold, drag that straight over into the step sequencer. Then we're going to try and move on to the next sample. So extend that a little bit, check that. Drag that over into the step sequencer. We'll zoom straight in. I'm going to cut this right to the start. You don't have to be too precise with where you chop these, and in fact, if you do leave a little bit at the start, you might find that you like the sound of the rhythm that you get from that, purely because compared to using programmed electronic beats that you might get from a sample pack, there's going to be some things that are slightly off time, not so much that it's going to sound wrong, but that it's going to give it more of a feel as though it's been played live. So I'm going to drag this last one over. So we've got our samples now. So let's just pick a BPM first. Just bump it up to 104. We can use this shortcut to fill in our kick drum. Don't know if there's an appropriate one for this. Each 2 steps, is that? Not quite. Although, let's leave it there for now and we'll change the velocity in a second and we'll see what we can come up with. This one, we'll just pop this on every second kick. Play that back. Okay, it sounds all right. So what I'm just going to do here, change the velocity of every second hat. We're also going to add all of these on to mixer channel 2. I'm not going to go overboard with organizing my mixer tracks for the sake of this video, but ordinarily I try to keep this as tidy as possible so I know which tracks are doing what and I'm not going to get confused as the project gets bigger. For now, just rename this to drums. All I'm going to do on that is add a little bit of reverb, and I'm just going to use the default drum room reverb with a bit of a low cut. I'm probably just going to take it down a little bit to there. So that's sounding all right. Let's do a bit more recording. I don't have any particular sounds in mind currently, so what I would recommend you do if you want to do something similar to this is just kind of start hitting your guitar in different places. So we've seen the technique that we used to get the kick drum. As we know, we can do that anywhere on the guitar. Probably not going to use that again because you get a particularly strong thud, but of course we can use our thumb to get some different sounds. And it's really worth just experimenting around just to see how the sound changes with your guitar. We can use the strings as well. So I'm just going to start recording and get a few of these here. So you can see a lot of the volume on these is quite quiet. We're going to need to amplify those a little bit if we want them to be heard within the mix. Just going to go through and see what we can find. We can use that, get that straight in to step sequencer. kind of a tom sound. If you really wanted to spend a lot of time on this, then I would recommend taking a few variations of each sound so that you end up with the most dynamic sounding arrangement. That's going to take quite a long time, so I'm not going to do it here. I'm just going to maybe get one more. Just go with that. We now need to figure out how we want to use these. I'm going to put these on a separate mixer channel. I'm going to put them onto 3. And because the recordings are a bit quiet, I'm just going to max them out. I wouldn't ordinarily do this. This is just for the sake of saving time right now. This one, let's just put it in and see if we can shift it up, see how it sounds. Similarly, we're just going to add a bit of reverb. Drum room again. The only thing I'm not too happy about is the snare. So what I'm going to do on this occasion is I'm going to double that up and I'm going to assign it to its own mixer channel as well. What I might do, not that, just use fast dist. I'm going to turn the volume down in case it destroys my ears. Give it something a bit more punchy. I'm only going to use the presets for the purposes of this video, but ordinarily definitely would recommend learning about the plugins that you're using so that you have a full grasp of what the settings are doing. Just see how that's sounding. And I'm also just going to do a quick bit of EQ. We can see that there's a lot between the sort of the 1 to 3K section there. I'm going to pull it up slightly around 200. And I'm going to drop these back in so that we can hear it in the mix. Pretty happy with that. So I've added some of these into the step sequencer, into the playlist, and we're going to try and record a little bass line under that. I'm just going to quickly use the step sequencer here to save time, allow me to pitch it down. I'm changing it to stretch so that when I pitch it down an octave, it doesn't just go crazy. All right, create a new pattern for that. Let's call it bass. We're only going to have one in this video, so that's fine. Again, kind of quiet. Add it to number 5. Fair enough. What I might do is double it up, fatten it up a bit so that we've got a low octave and one at the pitch that it was recorded at. Might even put a bit of distortion on here as well. That's fine. Save that. The levels don't sound too bad, so we'll just try and find some chords to throw over there. So these are our key notes that we want to follow. Give that a go. Might turn that bass down in a minute. Here we go. A little bit of reverb. I'm just going to put it on small studio, slight low cut. I guess that's all I was trying to do. Just an example of how you can pick out some basic recordings, sample them into something like FL Studio or any other DAW, any audio editor that has multi-track features. A little bit of EQ and you can have something that sounds fairly nice. So just solo the drums, give you a reminder of how they sound. You could do a ton more kind of EQing and processing those to make them sound even better. The bass line definitely could be improved, but it serves its purpose. It occupies the low end, gives us something to follow. And then we've got the 2 sets of recordings for the rhythm, which is going to occupy predominantly the mid end. There is going to be some low end frequencies in there that we would ordinarily cut out if we were going to do some proper mixing on this. And there you go, that kind of leaves you free to experiment with that. You can solo over this, you can add in some more high-end melodies, harmonies. There's all kinds of stuff you can do, really. Hopefully there was something interesting in there for you. But that's it, yeah, thanks for watching till the end. And I'll do some more of these soon for sure.